Hi guys, let's get started at looking at some of these activities. I'm on exercise E, page 183, number 1. You have to pick between the past simple, the past perfect, or the past perfect continuous progressive. Remember, to use the past perfect, either simple or progressive, you need 2 completed actions in the past. So, Mr. Osman cleaned my rug when I took it to his cleaning shop. There we're using the past simple because he can't clean the rug until you take it, right? So be careful of when. We're trained to think of when to mean at the same time. But the reality is when we use when, we sometimes use it like before or after instead of at the same time. So you have to read these for context. Here, it's illogical to think he had cleaned the rug before you took it there. He doesn't have it until you take it there. Number 2. Emily had been wearing the dress for 3 hours until her office mate pointed out the ink stain on the back. At this point, she probably goes to change her dress. Please see that I on purpose do not have the past continuous as a tense for you to use, because it's also logical to think she was wearing the dress for 3 hours, when her office member pointed out the ink stain on her back, but I don't have that tense for you. So it had been wearing, the idea that you wear something and it's a long action. Number 3, had you eaten when you went to bed last night? When I got home, you were already sleeping. Here's a great example of how using when does not mean at the same time. You need to finish eating and then you go to bed, unless you're a person who eats in your bed, which I don't think is the majority of people. So the idea is had you finished eating before you went to bed? That's really what the sentence is asking. Here, when is functioning more like before. And you know that because the next sentence, when I got home, you were already sleeping. If you had eaten in bed, I would see, plate on the floor, crumbs on the bed sheet, something. There's no evidence that you were eating in bed. So the idea is that you ate and then you went to bed. Okay guys, let's get started. Remember, in any kind of past perfect circumstance, either continuous or simple, you need to have 2 completed actions in the past. Please look at the directions and exercises E and F. You only can pick between past simple, past perfect, or past perfect progressive. There's no past continuous here. That's by design. And a word of warning about the word when. We learned that when means at the same time, but native speakers will use it to also mean after or before. So you need to read the sentences for context and understand what they're really saying. Also, remind yourself what until means. Until means all the time up until a point. For example, I couldn't read until I was 5, which means from ages 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and a half, 4 and 3/4, until I was 5, I could not read. At 5 years old, I could read. So that's important, for example, for number 2. Okay, number 1, Mr. Osman cleaned my rug when I took it to his cleaning shop. Here, when really means after. He can't have cleaned it before I took it to his shop because he wouldn't have had the rug to clean. He didn't clean it at the same time I'm taking it to the shop because cleaning it takes some time. So I took it to his shop, then he cleaned it. Past simple. This is not a paster action, right? It's not the past. Clean is not the past of take. It's illogical. He has to have the rug to clean it. Number 2, Emily had been wearing the dress for 3 hours until her office mate pointed out the ink stain on her back. Until. All the time up until this point, which means he said, hey, you've got something on the back of your dress, and she went and changed her clothes. So where is a long action? It's going to use it in the continuous form. Where is generally long, unless we're talking about someone's habits, like Miss Alex always wears a dress or a skirt, right? It's very rare that I wear trousers, so I always wear, today I am wearing. That's the difference with wear, side note. So yeah, she had the dress on. She was wearing the dress. And then he said, whoa, there's something on the back of your dress. And she went, yikes, and changed her clothes. So she had been wearing the dress for 3 hours until her office mate pointed out the ink stain on the back. Number 3. The little boy had dirty shoes when he came to class because he had been playing in the dirt. So he'd been playing and then he came to class. So he was playing, then he came to class. My actions are in sequence. Play is long, but I'm telling my story out of sequence. So he had been playing in the dirt when he came to class. And then, had you eaten when you went to bed last night? It has to, here when really means before. You eat, so you ate and then you went to bed. You were not eating as you went to bed, and you certainly didn't sleep eat. So it's, had you eaten when you went to bed last night, meaning had you finished eating before you went to bed? It's illogical to think that you're eating as you're going to sleep. Also, the speaker of the I would see plate or crumbs, which we have no evidence of from the text. So had you eaten when you went to bed last night? Okay, the next one, by the time. Remember, by the time is a clue that we might have some past perfect situation here. By the time Betty saw her phone at 10:30, she had missed 3 calls from her mom. How many calls? 3. Again, I'm interested in the result rather than the activity. It's not a repeated action because each call is a completed activity. How many? Simple. How long? Continuous. Number 6, I had been calling my mother all morning. How long? All morning until she answered. 5 and 6 are in contrast to each other to show you the difference between how many versus how long. She spoke well on our trip to Canada because she had been living in Australia for 3 years by the time we went out. How long? 3 years. Again, live is one of those verbs where I would take both answers. If you put had lived, I'd say, yeah, okay. But the for 3 years is really pushing you toward had been living. Person A, what is Sonia doing now? Now means that something she had been doing before is finished. Well, she had been training. Remember, I'm interested in the activity. What is she doing? She had been training for the Olympics, but now she is relaxing since they're over. So I've got this past action, train, it's long, had been training, and it's the past of compete. And now I'm back in the present, they're over. Okay guys, here we are, exercise F. When I was in college, it does mean the same time, I managed to work 3 jobs and take 15 credit hours a semester. Stop complaining. If you were tempted to put was managing, please read the directions. There's no past continuous allowed here. And that's to eliminate or lessen your confusion. So you only have one past action that's completed. Because when I was in college is a time period, and then you managed to do something. The veterinarian had injected a serum into the aging dog when he finally died. That he means the dog. Here, when is used incorrectly, in the sense that the serum made the dog died. If you think these are happening at the same time, you would need past continuous, and again, that's not one of your choices. So the veterinarian injected the serum, and that's what caused the dog to die. I know it's a little confusing. It's on purpose to show you that you really have to think about the logic of the order of the actions when you see when. It does not always mean the same time. And number 3, by the time Nelson Mandela died, remember by the time is a clue for the past perfect. He had been advancing the cause of human rights how long? 4 decades, without ever stopping. Those are 2 clues that you're stressing that this was a long process, 4 decades and without ever stopping. Okay, number 4. As soon as I realized the ruler was no longer straight, I bent it back into shape. As soon as does mean the same time. The other group members had already established the rules of our exercise by the time I got there. So again, we see that by the time is a phrase we often use with the past perfect. The president was impeached, that's passive, we'll get to it when we're back in class together, because he had been asserting his power in inappropriate ways, excuse me, for years. How long? For years. And he was impeached, which means he was removed from office, so he can no longer assert his power correctly or incorrectly. So asserting his power is finished, and then impeached is another finished action. That's why it's past perfect. It's past perfect continuous because it's 4 years.